What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update post Supreme Darkness for Dark Worlds. So what I've decided to do with this build is I've done an update involving the brand new Abawa Q because it actually helps out Dark World strategy a load. On top of that as well, just to kind of make it a little bit fresh and a little bit different, this does not involve a single FIENDSMITH card. It doesn't involve Tracked, it doesn't involve Engraver, just so that if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, what different options you can play. Now it's not fully budget. As of the time of recording this video, the Abawa Q is about £30 to £40 per copy. I'm hoping that by the time this video comes out, it might be a little bit less, as that will be after the official release date. And I feel you could very easily pick this card up between £25 to £30, maybe a little bit less once players get their copies of it. And then once they realise afterwards that it's not as generically accessible for everybody, but it's still a great card to use. So do not undervalue it whatsoever. And if you do get the chance to pick it up and you feel that it's worth the price you're going to be offered it to, then definitely grab it. I've also done a couple of different changes for this particular deck. I still kind of go with the standard lineup that I usually would, that you'll see throughout the profile, but I'll explain some of the other alternatives you can look at to change it up if you feel so. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving ahead first into the standard lineup for the Dark Worlds, I've gone with Triple Snow, pretty standard, alongside the Triple Genta, Triple Rainbow, and Double Grepher. Like this, in most Dark World decks, 99.999% of the time, will be the standard ratio. Now, what is a little bit different, and it's just kind of a personal preference that I like to play, and sometimes I play it and sometimes I don't, is I play the 1 gold, the 1 silver, and the 1 cerulei. Now, the reason I do a 1-1-on-1 kind of scenario is for the pure fact that these two cards, more so the silver, is ideal for going first. And what I quite like is that you can't guarantee you're always going to go first. So I like the option of gold to give me that ability to go second and still have a form of disruption while also still getting the same summon ability that silver would have. It also then means cerulei has multiple usages for me because, again, going second, there's certain cards that you would discard that don't get you much additional effect, but then there's the other cards that you normally don't want to be discarding off the back of cerulei going first, stuff like Snow, that you'll probably want to do a little bit more going second because your opponent will have cards in the graveyard to utilise. Then I play a Danger package. So for the Danger package on this one, I've gone with 2 Nessie, 2 Jackalope, and hopefully in Rarity Collection 4 we'll get this as a QC, 2 Danger Mothman. So I feel that these are the best dangers for the entire deck. If you wanted to add more in, the ones that I'd be looking for would be to add 1 more Bigfoot and also add a Chupacabra into the board. But honestly, I feel these are the ones you're going to utilise more than not. And it's also why I like to play the Salamander Catalyzer, just because it's a selected danger. And what I mean by that is it allows you to select what cards you discard, obviously ideally aiming for a fiend, and then with all the other dangers you're wanting to discard your Dark Worlds, that's kind of what you want to be doing. For the normal summon of the deck, I've still stuck with the Quackimiru Guardian. However, I feel that we're in a format now where Droll has shifted a little bit more to the side deck because the most competitive decks in forms of Rise Zeals with the FIENDSMITHs and of course the Malices can technically play through Droll a little bit more consistently, so more people are shifting it to the side and some people are cutting it completely. Now, I still like the idea of main decking the Quackimiru Guardian as it's not just in here for Droll, it still can be quite useful for some Floodgate type hand traps. The worst hand trap that you could possibly face right now in the format, in my opinion, is Dimension Shifter. And again, that's kind of like a grey area hand trap. It's one of the ones that if they have it, it's going to devastate most decks in the current format. And if they don't see it, you're still able to combo off and you set up a nice little bit of protection with the Quackimiru Guardian. And then later on down the turn, once you've set up your Grepher Fusion monster to protect you from monster effects like Nibiru and everything else, you can then get rid of the Quackimiru Guardian. Or if you've managed to draw into a second copy of the Quackimiru Guardian as you've gone through your combo, you'll then be able to keep this on the board and reveal that Quackimiru to keep it there. It's one of the ones you completely swap out if you want to. I feel it's something where Ken and Gen can come into play a little bit more right now because Droll has taken a semi-backseat, but it hasn't completely taken a backseat, which is why I still like to main deck this card. Now, I do get asked every single time why I don't play Doom Caliber Knight because it is a fiend and it is a dark. The reason for that is Doom Caliber Knight is mandatory, so it will negate the next effect, not just a chosen opponent's effect. So it means if you have Doom Caliber Knight as your normal summon and then you activate one of your monster effects, it's mandatory to negate that effect. Whereas Quackimiru Guardian you negate whenever you want. And then for the spells, I'm playing the 1 Dark Corridor, the 1 Accession, and then the 2 Gates. And then I'm playing Card of Destruction alongside Dark World Archives, 2 Allure of Darkness. So I kind of decided to go down the Allure of Darkness route on this particular build, and the reason for that is I thought I would spice in a little bit of an engine, could kind of help the deck out a little bit more in place of the FIENDSMITH engine. So the engine that I decided to go to was the Nemesis engine of 1 flag and 1 corridor, and that's where Allure kind of comes into play, because later on in your turn, if you've already resolved your Genta special summon from the Banish Zone, you can still put that Genta back into the deck with off of the back of the Nemesis flag. If you banish off of the back of your Accession, you then have the second effect for the corridor, or the second banish card for the corridor, and of course Allure can help you fodder that up as well. The other engine that I'm playing is a very small Unchained package, and this is just because you've unlocked some more space in your extra deck, because you no longer need to rely on a Requiem, a Sequence, a Desiree, or even a Aerial Eater, so it opens it up a little bit more. And then for the generic spells that are really going to help this out, you're going to be playing your 2 Triple Tactics Thrust with your Triple Tactics Talents, and then I've decided to main deck Book of Eclipse. I personally feel that Book of Eclipse is a little bit better than Forbidden Droplet right now, for the pure fact that you don't need to discard other cards or send other cards to help you resolve that effect. Now, obviously, Book of Eclipse is going to be less effective against the Malice strategy. It's going to be more ideal for the Ryzeal strategy. But even then, if you get to go first and you haven't been able to complete a hand rip because you've been hit with 3 or 4 hand traps, you can still Book of Eclipse their Dormouse on summon, and that will pretty much end their turn, because they can't use face down monsters for linked summons, and that's really a better position than being able to utilize Forbidden Droplet, because if you activate Forbidden Droplet and negate the Dormouse, they can still link it off, and then if they've got another card in their hand, they can then activate it and banish the Dormouse throughout some side of combo as well. So that's it for the entire main deck build. Now I'm going to take you on to the extra deck. So this just kind of gives you a couple of different options. It really is up to you. If you don't have access to Thrust and Talents, you'd definitely be doubling up your corridors. You could look at some other cards like Droplet, but what you want to make sure of is the cards you're drawing off of Dark Worlds. You want to make sure they're cards you're comfortable setting, or they're cards you're comfortable activating. So what I liked about Book of Eclipse is it's one of the ones that I can set it and not worry about having to have the fodder to do it. And then you've got to be a little bit careful, because it means you're going to end your board more so on link monsters. And that's where you really don't mind using the Abawa Q, using your Dark World Griffin Fusion monster to make the Abawa Q, because then Abawa Q can attempt to revive some of your Darks and Lights. So, speaking of which, you play the 1 Abawa Q, the Lightless Shadow. So this requires 2 monsters, including the Fiend monster, and then during the main phase, you get a quick effect to discard a card and then activate one of these effects. Now, unfortunately, it discard the card as a cost, so it doesn't trigger your Dark Worlds, but it will trigger your Dangers. You can destroy 1 card on the field non-target, or you get to banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, you special summon a Light or Dark monster from your graveyard. And then the best thing about that one is during the standby phase, you get to draw cards equal to the number of different monster types in your graveyard, and then place cards from your hand onto the bottom of the deck equal to the number you drew. The best thing about that is when you're looking at your dangers are Aqua, Beast, and Insect, and then of course your Dark Worlds are all going to be Fiends, your Quagmire Guardian is a Rock, so you could actually technically draw like 4 to 5 cards, and that's not including any of your extra deck monsters that you put in there as well. So you could draw 4 to 5 cards during your standby phase and just refresh your hand and you get to go again. For the other Link monsters, I'm still playing the Saruja Skull-Dread. I'm also still playing the Zelantis lock that comes off of the back of the Muckraker from the Underworld. For the Unchained monsters, I have gone with the Unchained Soul of Anguish, Unchained Souled Lord Yama, and of course the Unchained Soul of Rage. Now the idea behind this is if I'm going first, obviously I'm going to work my way into the Rage, and if I'm going second, I can work my way into the Anguish, and the Anguish just gives me the ability to SP Little Knight during my turn, and then Soul of Rage lets me do it during their turn, so the best of both from that one. If you can't get into the Unchained engine, or you get stopped getting into the Unchained engine, you still have access to IP Masquerena, and the best thing about IP Masquerena as well is if you make your Abawa Q with the IP Masquerena, the Abawa Q can bring back the IP, so you can just loop that around if you need to. You can also loop back your Soul of Rage, which is great. The one Muckraker from the Underworld, like you now don't really care late game locking yourself into Fiends because you still have access to go into the Abawa Q. And then the best thing about that is if you want to be bringing back one of your stronger Fiend monsters, which is what I quite like with the Muckraker with the Underworld, the Zelantis. So for those of you unfamiliar with a combo, basically the way it works is you make Zelantis, you'd go Skull-Dread, turn it into Zelantis, you'd then get 2 monsters to make the Muckraker, use Muckraker's effect, discarding the card, summoning back a Fiend from the graveyard. Chances are the discarded card will be an effect that summons again, so that's when you can get back your silver or your gold. And then what you do is you start bringing those cards back to your hand as resources for later on, because you can then bring back like a Rainbow and then a Grepher, so you're upgrading the strength of those. You then obviously activate the Zelantis. The Zelantis will banish the entire board, but you're locked into Fiends, so you can only bring Fiends back to yours and your opponent's board. So you'll still be bringing back the Muckraker, you'll still be bringing back at least 2 Dark Worlds. If you put all of those together, that gets you into the Abawa Q. The Yugioh queue, of course, can then discard a card, which will be a dark world or anything you want to get into the graveyard, or even a danger. As long as it can get you a fiend to the board, you'll be in a good position. But the idea is you'll discard a dark world, the Yugioh queue will leave the board and banish itself, but then you bring back the dark world, and then again you can just regain more resource there. So for example, if you bring back a gold or a silver, you then bring the silver back to the hand, bring back a rainbow, bring the rainbow back to the hand for a Greffa. So basically that's one of the ones where you clear off an entire board. You can still push for an OTK if you want to, but you also have the ability to basically re-loop your hand as well, even though you're fiend locked. For the fusions, we're playing 2 Greffa Dragon Overlord. Now the reason we're playing 2 of this and we're not playing colourless this time is because we're not playing the FIENDSMITH engine to get into Aerial Eater to send the Visago the Destroyer, which acts as colourless, so or the technical Rainbow. So being able to play 2 of this is absolutely fine. And the best thing about this is you can just loop it back with the Yugioh queue as a Dark Monster as well. And then the last fusion monster we're playing is the Thunder Dragon Colossus, because we're playing the Flag and Corridor. So obviously the idea is when you use Corridor and summon it down, it's the Thunder monster's effect that's activating the hand. So when you're basically saying, if you activate a spell, trap, or monster effect, I'm going to negate it, and you can't search, it really does cause your opponent a few issues. In order to search out your Nemesis Flag, of course, you do go with the Infernal Flame Banshee. Your alternatives to all of that is, of course, you'd go into Daguerre's if you feel you need to trigger off more discard effects and get you a bit more draw. And then, of course, you've got Baguska if you do get shifted, if you do get drolled and you can't stop it, or you just get hand trapped to death. You have a Baguska to try and sit on to slow your opponent down. So you're kind of working with loads of different alternatives. So, okay, Colossus in this matchup will be prioritized. So you'd go for this instead. I need to get my discard effects going, or of course I get to draw some more cards, so I'll go with this. Even though I skip my draw phase or anything like that, that's absolutely fine. And then I've just been hand trapped to death. So you've got loads of different options to play around with it. And remember, just normal summoning a Kokimiru Guardian and then resolving a Danger Mothman successfully gives you access to your rank 4. So you've got loads of different ways to get where you need to go. And that is pretty much it for the entire profile. Now, obviously, there's loads of different changes you can make. Stuff like the Book of Eclipses are definitely down to personal preference. I quite like it as an option right now. It's one of the cards that I am seeing a lot of success with in pretty much all my decks that I'm using. And it's one of the ones where I'm like, right, well, specifically with Dark Worlds, hand traps, in my opinion, aren't the best thing to have because you don't really get value off of them. You can't set them. They get discarded from your hand when you activate dangers, whereas with something like Book of Eclipse, you can set it and then continue to activate your effects, and then worst case scenario, you're still sitting on a Book of Eclipse that can still cause your opponent a lot of issues. So that's it for the entire profile. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them as always. Keeping in mind as well, like I said, if you wanted to make this even stronger or more consistent, you will add the FIENDSMITH engine to it. Even at the base minimum, just adding in like a Tract and 2 Engravers or anything along those lines can set you up on the route to get you to the Triple D High Wave King Caesar, or of course it can set you into Sequence, which will then lead you into Aerial Eater, Send Visago, setting you up the colourless play, which will give you a board wipe or an aggressor should you want it. So you've got lots of flexibility if you needed to look into it, and it gives you a couple of different options. I just thought a version like this would be quite good to show you rather than just repeating the exact same version over and over and over again with like one card changed. I thought I'd show you a different alternative if you are out there like me and you're like, I don't want to be spending 250 quid on a FIENDSMITH engine that could very well get hit on the next ban list or weakened on the next ban list as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.